Because on one hand, you have the separation of church and state, and on the other hand, you have like all these constitutional amendments separating church and state, having a freedom of the step for establishment of religion. So how can we rely on the Ten Commandments when we're supposed to be separated from religion?
The separation of church and state was meant to protect the church, not to protect the state.
So we are in one of the most vulnerable days of the modern era. Since the dawn of the Biden administration, the government withdrew troops and Afghanistan fell into the hands of the Taliban. They have since enacted Sharia law to harass, prosecute, and exterminate innocent Afghani civilians. And there are lots of Americans and foreign nationals also stranded in Afghanistan to this day. Russia and Ukraine are at war. Meanwhile, stateside, gas prices have skyrocketed. Inflation is very high. Supply chain shortages as well have also plagued our country. And there's political deadlock, none like before. FBI has raided Trump's home. Gun violence has gone amok, out of control. And there's a humanitarian crisis on our border with Mexico. And on top of that, we have two health emergencies that we're currently facing: the corona pandemic and the monkeypox epidemic. So where is our country heading to? What's the world going? Is this a sign of the Messiah?
Is there any good news?
Unfortunately, not.
None, none at
Not
all.
yet.
Yeah, that's not a very balanced picture. Wow, that sounds terrible. Yeah, it is pretty terrible. It is pretty terrible. But if you cut to the chase, the only thing that really needs to happen that will solve all of the problems is the Ten Commandments, or more specifically, the Seven Commandments. We were doing fine as a country, as a democracy, as long as we were committed to God's commandments. That came before the government. The people who elected the government believed in God and wanted to serve God. It's one of the reasons they came to this country. That is the basis for a healthy democracy. But if you take that foundation out from underneath, if we're not already committed to God's laws, nobody is going to obey country's laws. Democracy cannot work without the Ten Commandments. That's the moral of the story. So, democracy means people who want to be good elect a government that will support their values and their morals and enforce the laws that they want to live by. When people don't want to live by laws, every government is a tyranny. Make sense?
It makes sense in theory, but then you have like Afghanistan when they elected a democratic government and then the Taliban took over, unelected, for as an example.
Yeah, well, dictatorships, monarchies, they're always bad news. But we thought that democracy would be good news. Well, only if it's based on moral commandments, divine commitment to a creator. Otherwise, you're only as good as the guy at the top. And if he's corrupt, everything's corrupt.
Because on one hand, you have the separation of church and state, and on the other hand, you have like all these constitutional amendments separating church and state, having a freedom of the step for establishment of religion. So how can we rely on the Ten Commandments when we're supposed to be separated from religion?
The separation of church and state was meant to protect the church, not to protect the state. But it turned around and it became as if the state is being protected and defended against religion. That's disturbed. Separation of church and state means that the state has no authority over the church, that they're two separate entities. But the entire election, the entire process of democracy works only for people who want to be good. And why do they want to be good? Because they believe in God. I'll tell you this little quick story. This Russian recent immigrant came to Minnesota. Raised in communist Russia, atheist, doesn't believe in anything, blah, blah, blah. One day he comes to the Chabad house and he's all excited. He made a huge discovery. He went driving out in the country, farmland, and he sees a stand on the side of the road selling vegetables. He thought, wow, this is going to be great, straight from the farm. He pulls over and he looks around and there's nobody there. He wants to buy something, but there's nobody there. He waits and waits, nobody shows up, until he realizes that there are signs on each bushel, on each basket, 25 cents for a cucumber, 15 cents for a pepper, and so on. There's a large can hanging on one of the 2x4s with money in it. And he realized nobody is going to be coming. This is an honor system. You take what you want and you put the money in the can. It blew his mind. He couldn't believe it. Why would anybody put money in the can when nobody's watching? He couldn't believe that the money was still there. Couldn't believe that the vegetables were still there. He couldn't believe that the wooden stand was still there. Because in Moscow, they'd all be gone in a minute. And then he realized there's a God. That's it. He became a believer. Why would people be moral when there are no policemen around? Because it's a democracy?
Because God is watching?
Yes. People who believe that can govern themselves in a moral fashion in a democratic system. You take away that commitment to God and look at what we have. Look at what we have. It's not a democracy. It's a first come, first serve, grab all you can policy. Terrible. So hopefully the people who do believe, the people who want to be moral, the people who still believe in democracy will bring God back into the picture, bring the 10 Commandments back. Every kid will start his day in school with a moment of thought. Who put me here? Why am I here? What is the purpose? And we go back to having a wonderful democracy like never existed before.
Amen.
If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic and you're looking for more information, or you want to hear it again from another angle, there is a way to do that. And that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal. It's questions and answers. It's conversation. It's really relaxed. It's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.